So it's down to the commission to really, we've been allowed to read it, of course. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to do this. It's called Navigating the Digital Insurance Landscape. No, it's, yeah, it is. 10 years ahead. Is that right? And it's quite a unique way of doing reports, which was it's crowdsourced from about 40 people. So you rang around a lot of people, got a lot of information, and I thought that was a sort of, for me, a really interesting to see what the kind of crowdsourced view would be. So let's go back to the beginning. Why originate the report, and what were you trying to achieve by it?
Well, good evening, everyone. Well, I don't think any of you would want to read a report from one company, would you? Because it would be inevitably skewed and probably a bit biased. So we opened up the doors and we said, let's go and talk to some of the best people that we know, both advisors, practitioners, people in the industry, member associations, consultants, advisors, etc. And the idea was to do that in a unadulterated way, right? So there's no sanitizing of the comments. And I think that's very much around what we started out as a business. The goal, if you like, was to, in an unadulterated way, get some feedback from the industry. And that's how INSTANDA was. It was say, let's learn more. Let's see what the perspectives are. And let's see if we can do things better by learning more. And that's what this report's aiming to do. I think the goal simply was to reflect back on these opinions. And then secondly, and I hope you've all started it already, is to talk about it and not agree with it, to agree with it, to say those are the bits that I think make a lot of sense. And I think that's the way that we'll get improvement, because we'll have a debate about how we can do things better. So those are the two main aims we had. And I think for that, it's got more weight. Hopefully you'll agree. There is a surprise for you at the end, which we'll tell you about, because I'm talking about something you haven't seen, of course. So we'll give you the little surprise bit later.
It also gets you 40 readers, guaranteed.
Yeah, you won't believe the internal competition from the. I'm sure I'll spare their blushes, because I just want to say thank you as well to the people that did contribute. Some of them are in the room. What was interesting was the behaviour of the people that were quoted. I will spare the worst offenders, but they were all trying to find out who was quoted most. But we'll see.
No, I was incredibly competitive about it.
Oh, there you were.
Yeah,
Robin was competitive with his counterparty in New York.
Yeah, no. I mean, anyway, we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
So look, the area I think unsurprisingly that you honed in on, and I thought was dealt with very interestingly in the report, was this whole issue of serving the customer better, giving them both a better experience, but better use of personalisation to do that. I reckon we've been having this conversation about customer experience for quite a long time, and we're, it's still almost the biggest thing to come out of that report. Why do you still think that's an issue?
Well, I think everyone would agree that there's more that can be done for the customer, and all of the experts, I think this is a fascinating thing about the report, is that all of the experts unanimously said the same thing. And very much so, as we were taking this kind of outside-in view of what does the industry think, and particularly the protagonists, the advisors, etc., we thought, do you know what? It would make sense to widen that lens. Let's not just talk to 40 people, which were great, of course, but we went instead, well, let's go and survey some people. So we actually surveyed 2,000 customers, insurance customers in the US and the UK, to get their perspectives, to say, what is it you're seeing or not seeing from your insurance service? And interestingly, those perspectives were, again, correlated very highly with the experts that, I want a frictionless experience. I want more personalization. I want something that means more to me. And so I think the fascinating thing about your point and the experts and the customers themselves, everyone's agreeing, right? So maybe that's not a surprise. I think the question that you immediately go to is, well, why? Why are the customers still saying this when we've been talking about it in the industry for a long time? We could say, well, maybe it's inflexible old technology that doesn't allow you to do things that you'd like to do. They're not designed in a world of when retail and self-service was now prevalent. So that's one. Maybe you could say it's legacy, processes, culture. It's the way we've always done things around here. I think that's a little bit too simplistic, because if you look at some of the motor and home insurance offerings, they are very dynamic and very retail-like. So what's the challenge with the other lines? And I think that is part of the challenge. And I think the part of the shift is a paradigm shift, actually. I think it's when, we're fortunate to work with a lot of different kind of insurers and MGAs. And I think when they start to think about the service as a retail service, and those are the companies that do really, really well, because they start to change the paradigm of how do I think about my market and my customers, and how do I think about things that I need to deliver those personalized services. And that's driven by real-time data. It's driven by analytics. It's driven by flexible technology, of course. But I think it's more the paradigm shift that companies need to make, and not all of them can do that easily. Any of you that read the actual academic research around paradigm shifts, then they take a long time. And I think that's no different for insurance. But I think there are a lot of vanguard companies that are really starting to change outside of home and motor. This thinking around more retail directional ways of working.
Inevitably, generative AI was featured.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was probably the most talked about subject for 2023. Still feels like we're in the hype cycle. Someone said to me the other day, we should get back to having rational conversations, which I thought was quite a good way of putting it. Are you worried now that there's a sort of boredom or a kind of ennui about the whole kind of generative AI thing, or has it got unstoppable momentum and we're going to get on and do what we need to do with it?
I'm going to be a little bit ageist. Sorry, I was in a senior role when we were going through the dot-com boom, the late 90s and early 2000s. And it was all about the fall of bricks and mortar, and everything was going to go online. And here we are 25 years later, and largely they were right. And you can look at other technology waves of change, and they all have big impacts on society. I used to be a user, for those of this is really archaic. Those of you that remember, there used to be a Nokia 6810. It was one of the first mobile phones. Everyone remember that? Yeah. And now look at what we have in our hands. We have, compute power, which is beyond imagination from 20 years ago. But I think all of these waves that we've seen have taken several years to work their way through into broader parts of society. I think with AI, and if we call AI, say, the software, then AI in its purest form is a learning, and it has an exponential growth capability. Yes, we know it needs lots of data, and the data's available. But I think if you think about AI as software, it has that exponential growth potential. And then if you look at the actual hardware, the compute power, processing power, so what we're seeing with quantum computing is that's starting to be a exponential growth. So I think those two forces together will increase the velocity of change faster than we've seen any other technology waves. That's my view. What that will mean for the industry, well, we have to obviously recognize that, legislation and regulators are going to be playing a part on harnessing AI, because you can't have AI making its own rules up around risks that it might want to underwrite, for example. And so there will be some brakes applied to the progress. But I think, whenever technology has a wind behind it, and this has got real wind behind it, there's going to be inexorable changes. And my prediction will be it'll be a rate that we've not seen in other waves for those two driving points, because AI is self-learning. And the compute power was one thing that could have held it back, but it's not any longer.
Very nice, good prediction, like that one. So lastly, what do you want to happen next? So what I like about this report is it's opinion-based and it's got lots of opinions in it. what happens if I don't agree with the opinions? But
Then we've achieved one of the goals, which is to have the discussion.
I mean, that's what I was asking. I mean, if you want to form the foundation for some,
Yeah, I mean, I think that, look, I mean, some people might say we're a bit brave or a bit whatever, but I always think there's a thin line between bravery and lunacy, right? So we just went to this and said, let's get people to talk about their views, and I think it's, as I said, it's unadulterated. It's a conversation, and I hope when you see the report, you'll feel like that. You'll feel like you're in a conversation, maybe at a coffee shop or after dinner. It's like you're involved in the discussion, not of which you'll all agree with, some of which you'll vehemently disagree with, maybe. But I think that's the purpose. It's about opening up a debate, getting some alignment around views or not, and then trying to find a better way to think about some of the things that we need to do in insurance. And for me, that's the ultimate objective of this report. It's to open up the discussion. I mean, I'm just so delighted that because you even gave us a flattering comment, Robin, about it, and you are by a self-confession a cynic.
Yep.
But you were quite, and I was very flattered by that. And I think the people that we have in the report are fantastic individuals, and they've all got a huge amount of experience. So I think we should appreciate the weight of their experience. And we didn't know where it was going to go directionally, but I think that's one of the surprises for me when you read it again. Sorry, I keep talking about something you haven't seen, but you will see that there's this broad spectrum of people that have contributed, and yet there's an internal consistency and an alignment around a directional message for the industry, even though there's this broad spectrum of people in different parts of the industry. And that's what's so fascinating to me, is that this very, very clear sort of line of sight almost on what things should be better and done differently. And I find that really, really exciting, really motivating, because it means that, we've got a lot to do, but there's a lot of internal consistency around what those things are. And I think that's brilliant. I'm really pleased with it.
Well, I congratulate you on it, and everybody who was involved with it. And you've really whet their appetite now. And at the end, I'll tell you how you get a copy, but not now. Tim, thank you very much.
Thank you.